I've always been told that I'm too small. I'm not big enough. I'm not fast enough. I don't have what it takes. I prepare so no one can take what is mine. No one can replace my mind, my heart. To be the best and stay there, sweat is necessary. I'm older. Of course I'm older. That's the beauty of it. 16 years plus. Different level of wisdom, different level of understanding, different level of punishment. I want to live long after my records have fallen, long after my rings have tarnished. And whatever you got to do to make sure you chase your legacy every second of your life, will you be remembered? How would you be remembered? Why wouldn't you fight for the greatest achievement ever? Leave your mark to endure forever. Whatever you got to do to make sure you chase your legacy. I want to live long after 16 years plus. Necessary. After my records have fallen, long after my rings have tarnished, can replace my mind, my heart. To be the best and stay there, sweat is necessary. Why wouldn't you fight for the greatest achievement ever? To make sure you chase your legacy every second of your life.
Hey, it's Logan at Stocks. We haven't done this in a while, and quite frankly, that's part of our fault and part of just the nature of the business being this late in Madden stocks. Just people aren't interested, and I totally get that. It's summertime. The game's been out for almost a year now. The natural thing is just to quit playing or take a break or you get burned out. That's totally understandable. So I figured, we got to keep the podcast interested. So the new recruits coming into Madden 13, know what's up. They see us do it every week, so they kind of get the feel. And I thought it might be cool just to preview some teams in Madden 13 that we think may be underrated, overrated. Talk about some players that might be interesting. What do you think about Randy Moss rejoining us in Madden 13?
Yeah, I guess the big news. Coming into 13 is I finally get my Packers, and Manny gives me the best Christmas present ever. I get to go with my team, and yeah, he's going to the 49ers.
Yep.
So he's not going to miss a beat with the 49ers. I think that team could be really, really interested in 13, and we all know Manny's skills is, he's a very great Madden player.
Yeah.
The question was the Moss front. We have to speculate of what his attributes are going to be, but in that type of offense, he's going to be very interesting because you're going to have a lot of weapons, and the thing is are you going to get the Moss of the deep threat over the top catches? So we don't know. But if that's the case, if you get a little glimpse, just a little glimpse of the Moss over the tops catches and taking the defense off, Moss could be definitely a top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah, I think Madden's gonna be kind of friendly to Moss, but he's also gonna, I think, because of the last time we seen him with the Vikings, Tennessee, that whole debacle. I don't think they're going to give him superstar numbers, but I think they're going to be favorable. I think, what do you think, high 80s for speed?
Yeah, that sounds right, yeah.
87, 88, maybe 89. I think that's about right. I think, speed, I really think in Madden 13, from what I read, we'll get to connected careers in a while. The franchise mode is dead, which really scared a lot of people. But really, it's not much different. They just put a different name on it, and they promised a lot of things, and I hope it all comes true. Basically, I think they wanted the shock factor, and they did definitely shock some people. They definitely confused some people, too, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I think Randy Moss could be very interesting in the 49ers offense. The problem I have is Alex Smith really isn't a go-deep, gunslinger. He's more of a West Coast, little passes, little slants, out routes, little gadget short, precision passing, game manager style. That doesn't really go with Randy Moss. So we've already heard whispers maybe of Manny moving Alex Smith. Would you try Alex Smith? I mean, he got
You
you,
gotta,
right? New game. You got to try him out.
yeah, you gotta give him a shot. You know, like we said, 13. There's not gonna be blockbuster trades, and nobody's really gonna want to move. You're gonna want to stay with your stock team. You know,
Uh-huh.
so it, yeah, in Manny's case, I think he should just kind of do the opposite of what he did in 12 because he basically flip flops his team. So my best bet would for him would be to stay with Alex Smith and see how he works.
Yeah, if you got to make a move, that's fine. Maybe Matt Flynn of his Green Bay Packers will be available. With the Seattle Seahawks, maybe you can get him back in the trade. Do a trade if you have to. See what you got before you just throw a quarterback to the wolves, if you will. Let's talk about connected careers real quick. I posted a lot of videos on this, but the creators at EA did a really phenomenal job at putting a lot at us all at once, so it's really a mouthful to consume. I know Stocks is still a little confused about it, and quite frankly, I am too, to a point. Basically, all you Gridiron Gamers gotta do is go to I think it's Gridiron Hot Stuff. One of the forums, I posted 2 links, and pretty much they describe it all. It's like a 13-minute video if you combine the 2 videos together. It pretty much sums it up, but I'll try to give you a little summary of it. Basically, we're going to be a coach-driven league, so no players, so don't even worry about that factor. So, as a coach, you'll come in to the organization. We'll turn off the firing feature, so no coaches will get fired, because I just don't think that's, I don't think it's appropriate for Gridiron Gamers, because we have different people with different skill levels. So firing guys would just be unfair if you ask me, Stocks.
Yeah, the firing thing is kind of silly.
Yeah.
Unless you quit the league, then you're fired. But other than that,
Yeah, I mean, I get that if you're going to play offline mode, which is available, or if you're going to play with maybe a different group of guys. But in Gridiron Gamers, it's more about competing, being fair, playing up to the best sim ability. It's not really about wins and losses, and that's what a game's going to be judged on. So I don't think the firing feature will be turned on at all. But basically, what the exciting part of this is the salary cap is built into the game, so we probably won't have to use the website. The actual contracts are built into the game, so we won't have So basically, you're getting an offline franchise type mode online. You're getting your salary cap. You're getting the trades, the realistic trades. You're getting all that stuff that we use the website for is now in the game. And the only difference really with a coach league is you're gonna basically be able to make a coach if Stocks was coaching the actual Green Bay Packers and channeling his Vince Lombardi, what kind of coach would he be? If you're a player's coach, you can put these XP points, as they call them, towards maybe being a player's coach, so then you can convince older players like Stocks might have to do with, what's his name, Woodson? You might want to put some points, towards a player's coach and say, hey, Woodson, stick around. Or you might want to be more of a stern coach like Bill Belichick and stay closer to the vest. So it's just a way to kind of play around with different coaching styles, basically. And different coaching styles, as I understand it, will translate differently in the game. If you're a coach with a certain style, you run better offenses differently. And if you're on the defensive end, this is really interesting, Stocks. Now, I'm a 4-3 team, you're a 4-3 team. But let's say a guy like the Steelers, or I think the 49ers are a 3-4 team now, right? This is the interesting part. A 4-3 team drafts defensive ends a little differently than 3-4 teams do. So, a guy in the draft will be rated differently depending on what scheme he goes to. If he goes to a 4-3 team, he could be an 81 or an 82. But if he goes to a 3-4 team, he could be a 74 or a 72.
Yeah, it's a really interesting, feature this year because, like you said, if you don't study the guy, if you're drafting, let's say, let's say you're drafting a left guard, but you're going to put him at right guard, this year sometimes his ratings stay the same.
Yep.
And like you said, if you draft a linebacker, that's fitted for the 3-4, but you put him on a 4-3, he's kind of at a disadvantage, and yeah, he should be lower.
Yeah, his
So
stats.
it's going to be interesting, yes.
Yeah, they did say his stats will be affected. It's not just overall if he is in a 3-4 system and he fits a 4-3 better, you will see the different play styles. And if he is traded, let's say you draft a 3-4 linebacker, but he's traded to a 4-3, immediately that skill set will be adjusted as soon as the trade is evaluated. So it's an interesting thing. It's just another dimension in short to make us real coaches, and that's what we all want to be. We're all coaches, and we always want to, be in the game, but we know we're never going to suit up on Sundays. At least for me, Stocks. I don't know. You were primetime back in the day. You might have one more stint at the NFL, but my days are done. So if I can virtually pretend to be a coach and have to put up, different points for this, and maybe win 5 to 6 games to get these many points. Now let's understand, the points can only be applied to your coach. So you can only strengthen areas of coaching. You can't strengthen your players. You can't put all your XP points towards Tom Brady to be 99 speed.
Yeah. So that's a good factor, because we don't want to get the league lopsided by things that happen in the game. We need to have everything kind of equal. Let's say, just because we have some guys in here, we can't give any more advantage to them because they're just going to run the ship.
Yeah, and I think it's fair. I mean, it gives incentive for guys with different coaching styles to work. I mean, we talked about it all last year, so now you're actually going to see it probably better represented that Manny is kind of a trade-free guy. He just, when he gets a whim or an idea in his head, he just goes with it. Guys like the Texans are the same. So now that they put these points towards getting better guys. So you're actually going to have to recruit your free agents, as I understand it. So it's not just I want that guy in the free agent bid. I'm gonna go and offer him some money. If you put your points towards being a free agent scouter, as they call them, being able to talk to the free agent and kind of being able to, kind of convince them to come to your team, the more likely you are to get him. So guys like, the Texans, that skill set would be more valuable. Where me and Stocks are more tradition, we're more about our team. He's a Green Bay guy, I'm a Lions guy. I'm going to be more, team oriented, and I think that's how Stocks will lean too. So it's just different styles, different ways to coach. So that's interesting. Again, I posted some videos on the website if you want to check them out. They'll explain it better. But I want to talk about some teams and some different players and different things outside of just the career mode. What do you think about Terrell Owens getting back in the game?
I honestly don't think he will be back in the game. I don't think anybody is going to take a chance on this guy. I don't see him, even if he does make the Madden game, being a number 4 wide receiver. He's got nothing left. I mean, the number 4 wide receiver on the Rams maybe or something. Rated a low 70. That's about it. That's all I could give him.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, completely. He's not even in the league right now. I don't know if he's even going to be in the game, but I just feel that Madden, a lot of times, once you're a superstar, once you reach a certain level, they always baby you. Didn't we see Tiki Barber be rated 80-something before he was taken out of the game finally?
Yeah, that sounds about right. But like I said, I think we got a different breed of Madden creators down there in EA. So if they're smart, they wouldn't baby him because it's just not pleasable because he hasn't done anything.
No, you know what's interesting. We talked about the long and drawn out connected careers and how the franchise is dead. We kind of talked about that. I'm not going to talk about really that aspect anymore. But what's interesting about that feature is they said really anything is open. So, maybe Charles Woodson retires from the Packers, and then 2 years from now he decides he wants to go back into the league. You can get a guy who can retire and come back.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a guy who can suffer a career-ending, or not a career-ending injury, like a season-ending, injury. Maybe Randy Moss suffers it. Says, "Well, I'm done. I'm going to move on." And 2 years later, he can come back. They said it isn't very often, but it's called the zombie Favre effect. They said that Brett Favre did it a lot, so they're gonna sneak it in here and there in the game. It's not gonna be a lot of times, or
That's interesting.
where it becomes stupid or
Yeah.
kind of overplayed or overused. But occasionally, you could see a Randy Moss retire from the 49ers and want to come back to the Green Bay Packers for that one more chance at the championship, or free agents, for instance, will actually value if you have a chance at a championship versus maybe you're a younger team like the Lions, versus maybe the Green Bay Packers who are more, playoff ready, if you will. So that's an interesting feature as well. How do you think that will affect the game? I mean, obviously we haven't seen it, but just the thought of it.
Yeah, it's just going to be another additive to what already is a great game, I think.
Yeah.
It makes it more realistic because that's, like you said, only if they do a few guys here and there, that's great because that's what it is in real life.
I don't know if you've tried this. I don't know if you tried the college demo, and the only reason I mention that is because some features, gameplay-wise, will translate to Madden. They have it now, so the receiver has to be lit up to be looking for the ball. So if he's running a streak route, you can't just throw him the streak, willy-nilly 5 seconds after you snap the ball. You actually got to go through the 5-step drop, and then the receiver's going to actually tell you when he's ready or looking for the ball. So it's going to count in awareness a lot. It's going to count in all these things. And the college version has this in their demo where you have to wait for receivers and routes to be open. So it's going to encourage route running and all these other things. What's interesting is I was just messing around with the college demo and I was trying to force passes to see what would happen if they weren't ready. So I would have a guy in a streak and I would throw it to him purposely, early to see how it really affects. They don't look towards the ball at all. If they're not ready to catch the ball, they got their backs to you. One time it hit the guy's helmet. He wasn't even looking. One time it was so easily picked off. And that feature is going to be in Madden. And I think it will be a great addition, especially for defensive-minded players like myself. So you're not just going to have the spectacular catches, hopefully, in the game. You're going to actually have some logic behind it. Receivers are going to have to be looking towards the ball. Corners are actually going to have to make breaks on the ball and not just spectacular one-handed jump catches, or interceptions rather, that we see sometimes. So that's a good feature.
And one of the other aspects I saw was for the running game and the offensive line, where even if you think the hole's there, it looks like the running's going to be a little bit harder.
Yes.
As if the hole, it's going to be more predictable to run into certain lanes.
Yep.
Whereas this year, they could be there, and you could get through, but now it looks like you're going to get gobbled up sooner.
And they added a new feature. It's a new engine. They totally remodeled the way the game's gonna play.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I don't know if you saw this portion, but you were talking about the running game. If your offensive lineman falls trying to block, you have to hurdle him.
Yes.
If you do not hurdle him, and you just think, oh, I can, you know how it was back in the day when you could just
skirt through.
Yeah, the offensive line would be laying there, and you could just go on through. A Mack truck could drive through there. Yeah. Now, if an offensive lineman's leg is laying on the ground and you try just to go over it like some kind of lawnmower, like it doesn't affect you, you're going to get tripped up, and it's going to affect your balance, and you could possibly fall. They showed this in one of the videos I saw. The guy was Michael Turner, and he purposely ran into one of the offensive linemen. First, he ran into one of the offensive linemen while he was blocking. He got pushed back, like the offensive lineman was pushing, and so the receiver actually fell backwards. Like, not just got pushed back, he fell backwards and fell down. Yeah. One of the times he got tripped over him and he lost his balance.
Yeah, and the video clip that I saw was they compared this year 12 to 13 in just a simple wide receiver going up against a cornerback catch. And when in 11, their arms, 12, their arms would overlap.
Yeah.
And the wide receiver's arms would stay there. Whereas this year, when you go up and you bump into a cornerback and your arms hit, the wide receiver's arms and the cornerback's arms actually move. and your body gets pushed. So there is actually, I think they were calling it sway.
Yeah.
You can actually sway when you go up for a catch, which is more, more realistic.
Again, if you want to see these things, you got to see them in person. I mean, you can't just take me in Stock's word for it. The new engine, we can't even put it into words because first of all, we haven't seen it, and secondly, it's so remarkable. You have to see it for your own eyes. Like the amount of detail they put in the gameplay. I hope the rest of it lives up to the bill. What I worry is they put too much fine detail into it, and they forget the major flaws in the game. I hope that doesn't happen, but that's my only concern, because there's a lot of fine details that seem very interesting, but how do they play with the bigger, schemes of things is, what I wonder. But it does look very, very promising.
Yes, it does.
And guys like, Steven Jackson, who are a speed combo guy, guys like Maurice Jones-Drew, they get a new value because balance and weight and, distribution and how you run is really affected this year. So you can actually hide behind offensive linemen this year. You can actually, be able to breaking tackles is just so more, so much more realistic. If you got a linebacker who's, pushing two, in the high twos, and he goes up against a little skinny running back, he's gonna plow that guy. There's no chance of the, skinny running back running over him. If the small running back like a Sproles wants to get over that big linebacker, he's got to actually juke him out of his shoes. He can't just run through him like we've seen in Madden 12, which is so unrealistic, by the way. So that's a good feature. Because you've seen it with the small running back runs over this big linebacker, and you're just thinking, wow, this is totally a game, and you could tell because that would never happen in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really hope they fix the linebacker super catch.
Yeah, I think they will. I really think they're going more towards the hardcore game with. I think all these online leagues are finally catching up to the developers, and they're realizing, hey, back in the day, what they call the lobby lizards, the lobby people, guys sitting in the room looking for the leaderboards and all that, they're still there, but there's more of an emphasis on online leagues now and playing sim and being, the realistic aspect of football is really into gaming now, and I hope that translates to this year's Madden. I think a lot more people want to play more realistic football. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, of course.
Maybe it's because I'm getting older, so I have an appreciation for the real thing. But it used to be when I was a kid growing up. I mean, I'm dating myself a little bit, but when I was a kid growing up, it was more about the arcade version of video games. It was more about putting up points. It was more about, being flashy to your friends, or, you go to the neighbor's house and you would see who could score 60 points first. Now, it's more realistic. If I got defensive skills, or if I got players who got defensive skills like a Revis, like, these type of corners, they're going to shut down, explosive wide receivers like Andre Johnson, Kelvin Johnson, these type of guys. And at least slow them down, and if not stop them. But hopefully we don't see these 60-point games anymore, and we see more realistic football, because that's ultimately why I play games like this.
Yeah, I hope they come up with the solution of scaling back these scores that we've had in 12 that are just not realistic.
Well, what happens later in the year? People become so familiar with the game, they're able to do other things that and put up more points. But this year just seemed to be totally swayed. If you ran a lot of the same routes, they would work all the time. I'm hoping they give. It didn't seem like corners really got a lot of love this year. It seemed like you could have a basic corner like a Chris Johnson or Chris Houston, and he would play like Darrelle Revis. I don't know. It just didn't seem like. It didn't seem like the superstars really shined at any position, really. To be honest, you could play a bunch of bum guys or bench guys, and they would play just like the superstars if you knew how to play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate. I hope they put an emphasis on star players. Peyton Manning's gonna play better than Matt Ryan. Running backs like Steven Jackson are gonna play better than Darren Sproles. Stuff like that. Your superstars play like superstars, and that's more adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that. The problem is they were thinking, oh, well, if we get rid of speed, then we'll solve the problem. It's not just speed. You need to make it so the superstars are superstars, and the lesser players are lesser because I'm starting a 66 linebacker right now overall. He's got 89 speed and great man coverage, so those two attributes make up for any overall that he might have. And he plays better than most of my linebackers, which just isn't realistic at all. Let's talk about some teams though. What do you expect? Who's the underrated team going into Madden 13 from the draft that you noticed?
Looking into the crystal ball, as in the players that are going to be on the team for 13, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Phew. It's the Denver Broncos are going to be a very interesting team with Peyton Manning, Dallas Clark there. The wide receivers they have. The defense is pretty solid, so that's going to help Peyton Manning. I don't think Peyton Manning has ever had a defense like the Broncos have this year. You got Aaron Decker. Those type of wide receivers are going to really gel.
Thomas.
Yeah.
I've always loved Thomas. Stocks knows this from back when I was the Falcons back in the day. I got that kid on my team and I developed him. He's a very, very good corner. I don't just love I swear I don't just love the wide receivers out of Georgia Tech. I actually love other guys too, but Demaryius Thomas has got skills, and I think he's going to flourish under Peyton Manning. But I personally think the Broncos are a little overrated in Madden 13 a little bit.
Well, the thing is they kind of came out of nowhere last year.
Yeah.
And they did it with a backup quarterback, let's say, because he's probably no more than a backup quarterback at Tebow. So when you have a Peyton Manning come in that's, from what I've read and all the stuff I've heard, is going to be the old Peyton Manning, it could be very interesting with, the players around him he's got. And like I said, the defense he's never had like this.
Let's play a little over-under. Okay, I'll give you two names and you tell me if he's over that or under that. DeMarcus Ware, is he higher than shoot, I can't think of the guy's name. I can't believe I forgot it on the top of my head. The linebacker for Denver. Oh God. I should not be a football fan at all.
I know what you're talking about.
Von Miller.
Yes.
I redeemed myself. Von Miller higher or lower than DeMarcus Ware?
Who's rated higher?
Yeah.
DeMarcus Ware.
You think so?
Yeah.
How much?
I would give DeMarcus Ware 96. Von Miller probably like a 94.
So he gets in the 90s though. That's pretty good for a second-year player.
Well, yeah, the type of year he had last year. You're going to have to give it to him.
Does my boy Kelvin Johnson break 99?
We have to probably give him a 98.
What is it, like 5 people to get 99s?
Yeah. I think they should scale back with that a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. I think maybe 3, 4 the most.
Yeah, maybe.
Make it matter. Joel Rivas should not be a 99.
No, he shouldn't.
He should be a 90. He's definitely the best corner.
Yeah, so like a 96, 97.
Go ahead and give him that, but he's going to be... I don't think... There's very few guys I would give a 99. Very few.
No. Maybe, like I said, 1 to 3 players the max.
Yeah. Maybe Adrian Peterson I would, put up there.
No, you can't now because of his injury, so you have to scale back a little bit. If you're going to... If you're basically basing everything on 12 and how it worked out, you basically could almost follow the NFL Network's top 100.
Yeah.
You could go by that because you're having the players vote on other players.
Yeah, that's a good scale, and I'd agree with that. Now, talking about injury, now we've seen, I personally know this for a fact, Matthew Stafford was low injury rating. It didn't really affect him. He only got injured twice, and they were very short injuries. Do you think injuries play more of a factor in Madden 13? And the reason I ask is, Peyton Manning's going to be great, but that injury rating is going to be similar to Matthew Stafford's was in 12. Does that worry you?
No. You just got to go. It's a video game. You just got to play the video game. Hopefully it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
If you have a solid offensive line, you should be all set. No, I wouldn't be too worried because remember how worried you were about Stafford,
Yeah.
this year and whatever last year, and nothing ever happened.
He got injured
So,
twice for like 3 weeks
so then
combined.
there you go. He had one of the worst injuries
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
quarterback, and he made it. So it's it's
But it's the wild factor every year. One year Madden's horrible with injuries, and everyone seems to be getting injured. And then the next, you can have a low injury rating, and it means nothing practically.
mm,
They're not consistent with their injury rating, and that's what scares me. I never know what to expect from the injury rating because what was it in 10? Everyone was getting injured. Remember they had to bring out a pad for it because
yeah, the broken collarbone.
yeah, the broken collarbone. You remember that? And
Oh
then,
yeah,
and then this year, it seemed like only defensive guys got injured. So you
yeah,
never know what's going to happen with Madden injuries. So I mean, like Stock says, you can't plan for them, but boy, they scare you when you got a quarterback that has a low injury rating. I don't care what anyone says. As soon as you see that 50-some injury rating for a star quarterback, it puts a little bit of scare into you. But they do got a rookie quarterback who's got some amazing height on him. He's like 6'8". So hopefully he doesn't get injured. But now, potentials are gone in Madden now.
that's good.
It's based off stats, starts, and
That's the way it should be.
whatever whatever else Madden comes up with. But the potentials in players are gone because it depends on scheme. It depends on how you use them, how often they're used, how often they're on the field, etc. I don't know what all factors into it. I just know potentials are gone, and I love the prospect of that.
Well, yeah, because how many times have we seen, on our drafts, after the first 3 rounds, those rest of those players are kind of worthless,
Hmm.
and you don't have those great draft picks be able to become something or get up there because they already gave them a D or an F freaking potential, and no matter what you do, you can't boost that player up to an 80. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So it's good that we can make that
Yeah.
late round pick, a stellar,
Yeah, he's not just in 60 with good speed, or he's not just a 60 with good man coverage. You can eventually make him an 80 because he doesn't have that potential,
yeah,
already labeled to him. Which
yeah,
it it really irritates me, even when you're lucky enough to get a guy who's a low rated player with an A potential like LaShore was last year, my running back. I sat him on the bench practically the first year. He didn't have basically any really significant carries, or he didn't really do a whole lot. He boosted up to like almost an 80 his second year. I didn't basically do anything with him that would
yeah.
suggest he's an 80. But because he has that A potential, he goes up to an 80. So it'll be interesting to see what they do without the potentials being there.
Mm.
And I hope it's not all stat based because some people can get really crazy with the stats. I hope it's based off stats. I hope it's based off scheme. These type of things. But I love the potential of it. The potential being gone. Now, a team I'm really really high on. I guess maybe too high. I don't know. I think the Buffalo Bills are a really good team in Madden.
Yeah, they did a lot of work this year. Um, my one factor is the wide receivers.
Yeah, that's
The tight ends. It, I mean, I like the running backs. You know, so it's just gonna come down to can they score points with those types of wide receivers and tight ends.
but they do have a good offense. So they have a really good offensive line that I can remember. They have Fred Jackson and C.J. Spiller. That's a good 1-2 punch, I would say, on offense. They also, they don't have the best quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I compare him to a poor man's, Alex Smith.
Mm-hmm.
He's not, he hasn't proven he can be Alex Smith, but he's got all, he's kind of the same skill set type of player. Now, he hasn't shown the consistency that would, give you that, but he can do some good things. I think he's an underrated quarterback.
Yeah, and his factor also they signed Vince Young, so I don't know if that's going to be in the shadow. That he's going to look really good in practice, and he goes out there and throws a couple interceptions, and the whole Bills organization and they start out 0-3 and
Yeah.
chanting for Vince Young. So you got to watch out for that.
And, how much will Vince Young really play into Madden? Who knows, He didn't really play much of a factor this year, but that's because he was on the Eagles. I don't think the Eagles gave him much of a chance. But there's those guys who love the speed, running ability of a quarterback. I don't know, but I just love the Bills' defense. That defensive line could be better than my Lions' defensive line, and the Lions' defensive line is pretty good. You got Mario Williams. You got what's the young rookie they got? Copels, mate? No, Copels went to the Jets. They got the other guy, the other young defensive end, I think. No, they got the corner. Excuse me, they got that man-to-man corner. But basically, what I'm saying is their defense is young and really talented. And the problem is, I think everyone's looking at this year, but you got to understand that they got lots. I think their defense is really extremely young, and when you're playing in a franchise, you can't just think about 1 year. You got to think about 2 years down the line, which is why I got to get to your Packers real quick because you got a lot of rookies on that team who could be really good. Maybe not year 1, but year 2, if you play with them right, down the line, that Nick Perry kid could be really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my aspect, I'm the James Starks thing is he's very injury prone and he worries me. And I have running back Sean Green coming out from an injury last year. He went to Miami. From Miami, he's a good scat back. So I don't know how the running backs are going to hold up.
Now I got a question for you. Now, if I gave you a Super Bowl team, let's say I gave you a pretty good team. You were definitely a playoff team. Would you take Andrew Luck in Madden 13 or Peyton Manning? In Madden 13, not real life. Peyton Manning, what he's got? Maybe 1, 2, 3 seasons in him in Madden 13?
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew Luck, I think, is an 82 already coming in first year. So by year 2, you're looking at 84.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. Do you want to win now? If you haven't won, you're gonna go with Manning. If you have a few older players, at wide receivers or running backs, you may take the Manning and try to go for it all that year. Putting me on the spot, I probably would take Luck.
Yeah.
Just because we know we're gonna play, at least 3 seasons.
Yeah, at least. Now, I hope. Now, this is my hope. I hope we can get the game, and within a week we can start playing. That's pretty high, I know, from my experience with the game and how the updates go and how everyone wants to wait for the updates. And I get that to a point. But I hope we're not sitting around like we were last year. I hope that we can jump in, we can get a good start. We can get, 4 seasons in. Because now we're talking about some summer league now for Madden 12. That's not good. You got to play as many games as quick as you can. I understand time zones and different things. We might not be able to. But let's shoot for the stars first. And if we fall short, oh well. I think a lot of times people say, oh, we're in a foreign league and there's a lot of guys who are, from the UK, Italy, from, Australia, all these different places. And they use an excuse not to play as many games as possible.
Well, no, it's not that. It's when are those guys going to get the game?
Well, that's a good point because we know. I think Manny can buy it online through an American realtor and get it about the same time we can. But I'm not sure about how much that costs for shipping, and I'm not gonna require anyone to do that or say you have to do that to be in the league. So that's a good point. You make a good point there. But I don't know. I'm not saying we're in a bad league. I'm just saying. You know how it was last year. What we were sitting around for 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And most leagues were starting. So I'm just hoping. I equate that mostly to the lockout. So I'm really hopeful in Madden 13 we get the game, we open it up, we wait maybe a week for updates, and then bam, we're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Now I understand people want to wait till after preseason because usually after preseason you get one more last roster boost. I get that. That's fine. Because when you look at the grand scheme of things, you want the most up-to-date rosters.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be sitting around for 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks like we were last time. But
no, and also what we could do is start the game, and let's say we make an agreement like we have a free agent list, and I don't know how that's going to work or whatever, but let's say, the Lions sign, Cedric Benson, and the update's not going to go through for at least 2 weeks or whatever, that you automatically get Cedric Benson on your team.
Yeah.
We could do something like that.
That could be interesting. And, I'm just throwing out ideas. Now, maybe we need that 2 to 3 weeks to decide what the rules are exactly. Because I don't know how many of you know, but I'm going to be in a bigger role as a commissioner this year, working aside Manny on rules on a lot of different things. So now he's got a partner to work on this league with, so he doesn't have so much responsibility. That's not a bad thing, believe me. With Manny less responsibility, that means he's going to be able to play his games better, probably more on time. He's going to be able to, be a happier guy because his wife won't be complaining at him so much. So I'm trying to really help this league out. I'm not trying to take it over or anything. I'm just trying to help a friend out and really make the best thing we can make for this league. And I think it will work out best for both of us. I really do.
Yeah, I think Manny's making a great decision by, letting people help a little bit more, basically. As in you've been around long enough and you know the ins and outs. And just letting Manny, kind of, let the reins someone help is just going to make the league better.
And I know it's really hard for Manny to do. He's a very prideful guy. If anyone's ever spent, 5 minutes with Manny, passion pours out of the guy and just pure pride. You can tell. So he's one of those guys who never likes to ask for help. You kind of gotta force his hand a little bit. And I kind of forced him enough to say, hey man, it's okay. You can trust this league. He's gonna have some other things going on in his life. Once you get married, the things that happen. So, I want him to be able to be in this league and be able to enjoy the game because the game is the most important thing. I mean, of course we need a commissioner, but if you can't get your games in, if you're not having fun with the game means nothing. I don't care if you're the best commissioner in the league. If you're not having fun with this game, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm just making it a little easier on him so he can have a little bit more fun, so we can all, And I think, honestly, he knows this. Sometimes his translation with English to, Italy, the Italian accent, can get him in some trouble when he writes the rules and stuff. People get confused. They don't exactly understand what he's saying. He's trying his best. I mean, trust me, his English is pretty good for, never really being over here or, transitioned. So I'll be able to help the American owners understand what he means and vice versa. He can kind of tell that, the foreigners, if you will, what I'm talking about. And so I think it'll be a good combination. That being said, is there any teams that you're looking forward to?
In Madden 13, we're going back to Madden 13 again. The thing is I'm looking forward to see what, basically what ratings are going to be the interest in ratings for players more like it. Based on last year, like you said, Adrian Peterson's been 98 his whole life. But this is his first big major injury, an ACL injury.
Yeah.
As of right now, they're not sure if he's ready for week 1. ACLs, Jamal Charles ACL.
They need him too, by the way.
What's that?
They need him too, by the way. In that
yeah, of course, that's all they got. You have to. It's going to be interesting if they're going to keep them guys at that level.
Yeah.
For those type of reasons, because those are what makes those guys go. And so Jamal Charles is based on speed.
Mm-hmm.
With a blown ACL, his 90 whatever speed, 90 plus, he had like 95 speed, I believe should be knocked down. So.
Yeah, we'll see how injuries affected. I'm a Lions guy, and I'll be the first to tell you, LaShore should not be rated. And he should be rated low 70s. He hasn't done anything all last year. Maybe give him a little bit of a potential, ratings, like say, oh yeah, you could be really good with your build, your speed, all that things. But I don't want to see him be a great running back with, all these things like he was last year. I think, I like the guy, but come on.
Yeah, torn Achilles is a major injury.
So I want to see the ratings be more reflective, like you're saying. Now, how do you think the passing's going to be affected? Do you see a lot more coverage sacks with the timing of these wide receiver routes? I mean, honestly, Stocks, If you throw it to a guy who's not open, I mean, okay, I'll try to explain this better. If let's say you have everyone on a streak, they're going vertical, they're going down the field. It takes 2 to 3 seconds for that icon to light up. Now, if you know Kelvin Johnson's circle, you can hit circle, but he's not going to be looking towards the ball, which is basically a jump ball type situation, which Kelvin Johnson might win. I mean, that's if you're going to do it to anyone, Kelvin Johnson would be the one I would throw it to. But that being said, you're pretty much throwing a gamble if you just throw it to him when he's not looking. So having to wait for the receiver to actually be open and acknowledge the ball is coming to him, do you see that really affecting this league? Because I see it a lot. Even I do it myself. I'll throw the ball and then click on the receiver, and then try to catch up to the spot, or try to do the spectacular catch. But with this new Madden system, it could change everything, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting. I don't know if, like I said, I've said it all year this year about how the attributes don't live up to what you're actually doing on the field, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I just played my game today, and I missed a lot of short passes, which I mean, yeah, the guy was open, but it wasn't even close, and it's just the attributes should live up more to what's actually being done.
I honestly think with this new system they will.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really going to be rated on receivers' route running ability. Route running is going to matter with this timing system. Quarterback's awareness, because he's really throwing into a cone. Because really, I mean, honestly, if you throw it to him when he's not open, it becomes, does the quarterback have enough trust in that wide receiver? And I tell you, 75% of the chances or times it was picked off or hit the receiver right in the back of the head. 75% of the times when I did it on the college version.
Do you remember when Madden had the cone vision?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was 10 or 9.
I really think it was a great feature. They just didn't develop it.
Yeah, they stopped it. And as when you were a quarterback, you had to actually use your right analog for the quarterback's head. So if you wanted to throw it to the left, you actually had to move the quarterback's head to the left. And it would be like a shadow, or like you said, a cone to the left.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. If you haven't seen it,
you don't have to use the shadow, but you should be able to use the right analog to throw which directions instead of just pressing the button.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And certain quarterbacks had a better
cone.
Like you said, their cone was a lot wider for a better awareness quarterback and accuracy.
Yeah.
So if you throw to the right and you're pressing to the left, I mean that throw should be off. I hope a feature could be like that down the road. It was in the works.
I don't know why they give up on it. I really think it was, like I said, I think it was too realistic for the time. We were still living in the times where people want to put up 60 points. I think those times are gone. So I think Madden can now experiment with these type of more realistic based, gameplay decisions. And I really think you're going to love the timing of the receivers. Because the better route runner, like Wes Welker, a Kelvin Johnson or Larry Fitzgerald, they're going to push that press coverage out of the way so much quicker. They're going to turn their heads and turn their bodies because they're so much bigger than their corners, they can get in position quicker. Where, I don't know, name a receiver, Crabtree, maybe Des Bryant, some of the lower ends, but, still good receivers, but, the lower ends, Jonathan Baldwin, for example, who's a great speed guy, but not a great route runner, you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer to throw to him. You're gonna have to wait a little bit longer for him to make his, break on the post route. He's not gonna be able to make it as quick, and I think that's gonna be a great feature, and it's gonna make the wide receiver matter. It's gonna make the corners matter. Because if you got a Darrell Revis on a Jonathan Baldwin, basically he's not doing anything all game. You better look to Dwayne Bowe or somebody else if that's the case. So I think it's a great feature. One of the things I'm really curious to see is, would you compare RG3 to Michael Vick in Madden 13?
Yeah.
Is that how he's going to play?
RG3 is going to a little bit more accuracy in deep ball.
So he's going to have So you think he's still gonna have that accuracy?
He should. He's gonna. His intermediate and short passes aren't that great, but from what I've read and the stuff that I've seen is he throws a very good deep ball.
He does. But
So,
from what I've seen, I think his accuracy is. I honestly think his accuracy is overrated. He throws a great deep ball. Okay, his accuracy on the deep ball is not my concern, but his mid accuracy, from what I saw, and his short accuracy, it's not as good as people say. His deep accuracy is precise. I mean, throwing that vertical route, wow, he puts it right on the money. But when he has to take a little bit off that throw and go short, or to the mid, it's not there. And I just worry that Madden's going to make him too good too quick, which is great for Redskin fans and guys using the Redskins. You'd probably say, if the Redskins are open, which they might be, it was talk about River, the old Russian coming back, and I hope he does. He left for good reasons. He left for a family reason I won't discuss publicly, but I hope he comes back. But if he doesn't, that's probably the hottest open team available,
yeah, no
right?
doubt about it. And like you said, I think you kind of, they're gonna give their Madden love to, RG3 and Robert Griffin.
Andrew Luck, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I heard Robert Griffin was 81 with like 82 or 83 speed, and Luck was like an 82. So 81 and 82, that's pretty good as rookie. They deserve it though. They're the number 1 and number 2 prospects coming in, and especially Luck. Luck's probably the most polished college quarterback I've seen in a while. And I might have lost stocks here. We'll try to get him back for the last little bit. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I might have lost connection. We're gonna try to get him back though. Oh, I think Stocks had trouble on the connection, but as I finish the podcast up here, if he comes back, we'll get him back. Another team I'm looking forward to is the Cardinals could be interesting. The Rams could be interesting with they got a lot of young players. I'm looking forward to Brockers to see what he does. I'm looking forward to see what they do, at receiver. They got a small school kid who's really big. Yeah, but I was saying there's a virtual Twitter in Madden 13, so that could be interesting. You got guys like Skip Bayless, Trey Wingo, who else am I missing? Mark Schlereth, a lot of ESPN issued personalities. Going to comment on the games, and that should add a factor. I guess it's a Facebook application you can download, so you can get the fake tweets like the real tweets on your Facebook page. There's a lot of interactive. It's a new franchise mode, and it's all exciting. The one thing I'd like to talk about is the Cardinals. I think is another underrated team. You got Michael Floyd and Larry Fitzgerald. Their secondary is amazing, and I think that may be an open team coming up. The Chargers might be an open team. There's some teams that have some interesting. Do you think Rivers is a high 80s again? Those are questions I would have for other people coming in. But I'm gonna sign off for now. That's our Madden preview, part 1. Part 2 could be coming. Who knows? I wanted to just throw this out to the people. Say we're still here. We still do the Stockton Logan show, and hopefully Madden 13, we come back stronger, ready, faster, than ever. And I think this. If you haven't checked out those links, again, check them out. I post them all over the forums. There's no excuse not to look at them. They're like 13 minutes long. They explain the whole connected careers. We are only a coach league. Keep that in mind. Peace out, guys.